writing. And 3 and 6 should be able to choose a research topic, conduct a literature review, make research design decisions, collect and analyze data, and then write up and present the results without any difficulty. That is the assignment we have before us tonight, that after this discussion, we should be able to achieve those objectives. 2 weeks ago, we have our presenter who lectures us on improvisation and a teaching aid, learning aid. So the slide now that you have on the screen is going to be my learning resources. So you need to look at it because we are talking about empirical research. And this flyer that we've been posting for some months now will be our teaching aid or lecture aid tonight. So I'll be making reference to it. So if you have your phone there, you can please snap it, especially where we have the team and the sub-team. The theme of the conference is designing educational assessment for the 21st century. And the sub-theme as follows. You need this sub-theme to be able to enjoy our lecture today because I'll be using it as our teaching aid. The sub-theme of the conference as follows. 1, affective ambivalence and student test aversion issues. Assessment and attainment. Assessment characterized by digital culture. Assessment methods in arts, humanity, science, and mathematics and technology. Avoiding pass-fail dichotomy in assessment. Demand for 21st century skill, critical thinking, and creativity. E-assessment Yes, we have also on the sub-team, gender equality and assessment, assessing the impact of entrepreneurship initiatives, new area in research. Those are the sub-team. We'll be using the team and the sub-team as our learning resource for this presentation tonight. Having said that, the contents of this seminar is as follows. We'll be considering tonight steps for conducting empirical research. Then we'll look at empirical research methodology circle. Then we'll look at report writing. Then we have conclusion recommendation. And then after the lecture, we shall have evaluation of class exercise. Now, let's look at, by way of introduction, what do we mean by empirical research? Empirical research is a research that we use empirical evidence. What do we mean by empirical evidence? We mean the record of one's direct observation experiences. That is, we are making use of the researcher's direct observation. We are using primary data himself. And so that is what we call empirical research. It is also a way of gaining knowledge by means of observation or experience. Now, not only that, this empirical research we are talking about, or empirical evidence, can be analyzed quantitatively or qualitatively. I want you to take note of what we are saying. There must be observation. There must be experience when we are carrying out an empirical research. That means we start with observation. Somebody has to observe something before you can carry out empirical research. And that can be direct observation or direct experience, as the case may be. Now, when we talk about observation, what is the first thing that we need to observe? First of all, we have to teacher. I was a physics teacher in a secondary school, and I discovered that there was a problem. The problem is that many students, they were not doing well in the subject area that I handle, precisely physics subjects. Many children were not doing well in the public exam. In West Africa, for example, we have a West African Examination Council. And you see that many years ago, when the children, when they write physics in WAEC, many of them used to fail, or few of them will pass the subject at a particular at the credit pass level. I was worried, what is responsible for this failure in physics subjects? Is it that the teachers were not teaching well? Is it that the subject was too difficult for the children to understand? There are many factors. So I put in for PhD degree, and in choosing my thesis topic, I decided to investigate what are the factors that are responsible for student achievement in physics. You know what informed my topic? It's because of identified problem in secondary school, that the student title of my thesis. I then look at many factors. One of those factors that we look at then was the school factors. And then we look at some other factors, teachers factor, problem solving skill factor, and many other. In the course of the research, we now look at the achievement for some years, about 10 years. And from the research, we discovered that apart from the school factors, apart from the teachers factor, there was another factor, and that is the examiners factor, that have been working against the students while they were not doing well in physics. We discovered that within that period of investigation, when we look at the WAEC result in physics, then it came to a particular year when the children began to do well in physics. Then I investigated, why is it that from a year, the children, they began to do well in physics subject? And I discovered that it was that year that the WAEC changed their pattern of questioning. Before that year, they used to, in the essay physics question, they normally ask the children 5 questions. But that year, they began to ask children 15 questions, 10 questions, a short answer question, easy going question. And then we have another 5 that are difficult questions. So from that year that WAEC changed their pattern of questioning, you find out that the children started doing well, because now the children now have many questions now that cover the physics syllabus, and so they are able to pick the one that they know very well. And so you see that from that year, the students, they started doing well. Now, that tells us that it's not only the student factor that affects the achievement of the students, and it's not only the teacher's factor that affects the achievement of students in physics, but even the examiner's factor also poses the challenges whether the student will do well or not. Now, having said that, you need to look at your area. You need to look at your vicinity, whether your school or your institution. If you are your church, your family, you need to identify a problem, and you can use research to solve that problem. Just like we use research to solve that particular problem of why students were not doing well in physics. So the first thing the researcher need to do is to look around where you are working, and the school where you are teaching or you are lecturing. Look at the organization you belong to and identify what is the prevailing problem there. And that will inform you to carry out a research so that you will be able to solve that problem in that vicinity where you are. Now, having said that, there are things that you need to do before you can even start empirical research. You need to look at how do they conduct research, empirical research. How do you recognize this is a research done empirically? Now, we have this slide that is before you now. There are some steps you need to take. Number one, you need to, when you take a research paper, a report of a research paper, for you to know whether it is an empirical paper, number one, you read the subheading within the article and look for a description of the research methodology. You ask yourself, could I recreate this study and test these results? That is one of the evidence of an empirical study. You can recreate, you can redo what somebody has done. You can make a replicant of what somebody has done if it is an empirical research. Then you will look at the research question of that article. Are there specific research questions that are raised? You will look at the research question. The research question to be answered, are they specific? Every empirical study or empirical research, we normally raise specific questions. Then you look at the definition of population, behavior, or phenomena being studied. Look at the population of the study, the sample. Are they described or are they written in that research? Every empirical study, you will see that in empirical study. Now, there are 6 components that you will see in an empirical research report. Number one, you will see that the results. It will have what we call findings. You will see the introduction. Under the introduction, we normally call it literature review. You will also see methodology, which we call research design, and other things like you describe the population of the study, research process, and the analytical tools. Then you now come to the results, which we normally call findings. Then after this result, the findings from the result will be discussed. So you have the discussion, then you have the conclusion, and then the researcher or the reporter will now make some recommendation. So having gone through some research that have been done, you read the articles, you yourself will be able to decide, this one is an empirical research report, or this one is a consensual research. When you now determine that you also want to do an experimental, you want to undergo an empirical study. These are the steps that you need to follow. Number one, you identify a problem, just as I told you. You identify a problem, and then you now decide which type of research do you want to do. Which type of research do you want to do? You decide, is it consensual or empirical research? You need to ask that question. It's you that will provide answer to that question. I want to go in for consensual research. I want to go in for empirical research. Then the next thing is research procedure. Research procedure. You need to look at the research procedure, then followed by investigation that will require methodology. Then you provide a solution. That is how you start. Then the next stage is that you will need to make a choice of the type of research that you want to look into. That is, your choice of type of research depends on the time you have to carry out the research, the cost, and the requirement from your donor or the journal or the institution you want to submit your research to. Now, we will now look at the step for conducting an empirical research. For the purpose of this discussion, I identify six steps that we need to take in undergoing an empirical research. What are the steps that need to be taken? Number one step is you define the purpose of the research. Then you need to do some literature review, because you already determined the purpose of research. Then you will need to read. You need to look at area people has worked that surround what you also have in mind you want to research on. So you need to read the work of other people. Then you will need to raise some research question or create your hypothesis for the study if it's going to be an empirical study. Then the next stage will be methodology. You must have a kind of research design. And our last presenter explained to us what we mean by research design. After you have decided the research design, then you need to have your instruments, the instrument you want to use to collect data. And after you have your instrument, the next stage is you collect data. After this, after you have collected your data, then you will need to do analysis. You may need some software to use that you will employ. And after that, based on your findings and your result on the table, then we now have discussions. You make conclusion, and then you make recommendation after your conclusion. Now, having said that, we will now look at this step one after the other. Let's look at the first step. This is the step where the researcher has to answer questions that, like, what exactly do I want to find out? You know, you want to carry out a research. Actually, you want to find out something because you have a problem at hand. You need to state the problem that you are having. I already told you when I was a teacher in secondary school, I identify a problem. The students were not doing well, even in public exam in my subject area. I identified the problem, I articulated the problem. And so you want to find out, you want to ask yourself, what exactly do I want to find out? Then you have problem statement. Then you ask some other question. Are there any issues in terms of the availability of knowledge? Before you can go in for that research, you need to look at literature. What are the available knowledge? What kind of data do I need to collect? Then that will inform you whether you need to adopt certain instruments, or you need to adapt, or you need to create your own instrument yourself. You also need to look at the time or resources that you have to carry out the research. Will this research be more beneficial than what it will cost me? So before you go ahead, this is what you need to do. After you have asked this question, the next thing, you need to define the purpose of your research. And then you set up a plan to carry out the research. Now, the next stage after that is the issue of literature review. Empirical research is not diverse from theoretical consideration. And a consideration of theory should form one of the starting points of your research. There is a link between research and theory. Now, when we talk about theory and research, there is a link between the two of them. One, your theory may inform your research. It may be that as you are reading through literature, as you read through literature, then you discover there is a gap. Because of the theory literature you have read, you discover a gap, and that gap informs your research. You say, I want to fill this gap. Another way, the findings of your research can inform a theory. Through your research finding, we can have another theory in place of the existing one. And there are many different kinds of theory in literature. I was able to peruse about 3 of them. There is one that is called interpretivism. This theory, few criticize positivism. Let me mention the 3 of them before I explain each of them. One is called positivism. Another one is called empiricism. Another one is called interpretism. Now, we first of all look at the first one, that is the positivism. This school of thoughts, this is the approach of the natural science. The natural science, they believe in what they see. They say, I believe what I see. I believe in facts. I will not just believe. The decision is not subjective. The decision is objective. So that is the positivism. They believe in experiments. They believe in findings, and their findings is not subjective. Their finding their finding is based on. Then we have the second school of a theory. This one is empiricism, very similar to positivism in that it has a strong reliance on objectivity and quantitative methods of data collection, but with less of a reliance on theory. There is emphasis on data and facts on their own right. They do not need to be linked to theory. That is empiricism. And then the third one is interpretivism. These few criticize positivism as being inappropriate for the social world of business and management, which are people rather than the laws of nature, and hence has an inevitable subjective element, as people will have different interpretations of situations and events. So you have these 3 kinds of theory. So you will need to decide as a researcher, are you going to base your theory on empiricism or positivism or interpretivism? Having said that, we now look at the introduction. There are 4 areas that your report will cover. And the first one is the introduction. The researcher, we have to provide a working hypothesis or guess or research question, and that will be the probable results that will guide his study, because it's not working in vacuum. He has raised some questions, and these questions, they are the one that will guide the research that the researcher wants to investigate on. Now, so we are saying that the starting point for your research, after you have stated the problem, you have identified a problem, you have your purpose of study, the next issue is raising your research question. Now, this research question have to arise from your research stream, from your topic of interest. How do we get our topic, or how do we get our research question? Our topic of interest can come from different ways. It can be by observing what is going on in your surrounding. Some other time, it may be as you read some thesis, doctoral thesis, master projects, and all that. Then you discover gap. Some other time, it may be when you read journals and you see gap or other area that people say people should investigate This can inform your new topic. Other time, it may be from call for papers. Like we have an academic conference, there's always call for paper. From the calls for paper, you'll be able to get title for your research. Some other time, it may be because of environmental problem, like the issue of COVID-19. A lot of researches are going on now, and people are trying to research in order to be able to provide solution to the problem that are being caused by COVID-19. These are how we get our topic of research. But after we have gotten our topic and we have questions that are bothering our mind, these questions that are bothering our mind, they are different from research questions. We must know how to redesign the question that is in our mind and make them to become research questions. I'll be showing you 3 examples of, I'll be giving out 3 examples on how to write research question. For example, Ario and Eta, they examine the impact of technology in curbing examination breaches in public examination in Nigeria. What informed this study is because of the menace of examination practices, not only in Nigeria, in West Africa and other continents of the world. Now, this is a problem. Actually, why do we examine students? We want to examine our students to actually measure what they have gained from an instruction. We want to know what their mental knowledge, ability. We want to measure their mental ability on a particular phenomenon. But when we have this menace of examination malpractice, you will find out that our result will be wrong. If somebody has cheated in the exam, and we say the person has done very well, whereas the person has not mastered anything from the course of instruction, you will now discover that our evaluation, our assessment about that candidate will be very wrong. And so you see, what informed this study is because of the menace of examination malpractice. So this researcher decided they wanted to look at what are the factors that can eliminate examination malpractices, especially in public examination. One of the factors they look at is the impact of technology. If public examination, suppose they employ the usage of technology in their examination, will that help to solve that problem examination? That is what formed the source of the research. And so therefore, the researcher raised the following question. Number 1, already I've told you the problem, the statement of the problem. I've told you the problem they had in mind is that there is something called examination breaches or examination malpractice, and it's rampant everywhere, both in West Africa, East Africa, anywhere, name it, all over the world. Now, but that is a problem. But you cannot just do research on examination malpractice just like that broadly. You have to limit yourself to a particular area. And so the researcher now thought that some examination body, they employ technology in the conduct of the examination. And so the researcher now wants to look at the impact of bringing in technology, whether it will help or it has helped to curb examination malpractice. So now they transform the general question into research question like this. One, they said, to what extent has the introduction of computer-based testing improved examination security? A question mark. Another research question is, what is the trend of cases of examination malpractice? Or what is the trend of cases and types of examination malpractice before and after the introduction of computer-based mode of assessment? What they have in mind is to look at before the introduction of computer-based test mode of assessment. You want to look at which type of examination malpractices are in place. Now, after the introduction of computer-based tests, those cases of examination malpractice, are they still there? Or are there new ones that have come up as a result of introduction of technology? So this, you can see now, the general problem have been transformed into specific question, which we call research question. Let's look at another example. This one is in management. Now, Motion and Eta, another researcher, they examine co-branding in equity in corporate co-branding. The emphasis is co-branding. And they want to look at co-branding equity in co-branding and corporate co-branding. That is taken from European Journal of Marketing, volume 37, number 7 and 8. And they came up with the following research question. It's the same research question, but coined in different way. This is the objective. What objective underpin the corporate brand? That is one of their research questions. Another discussion is how are brand values deployed to establish the corporate co-brand within particular discourse context. Another question was, how was the desired rearticulation promoted to shareholders? Another question is, what are the sources of corporate co-branding equity? So you can see the main objective is to look at the effect of co-branding in corporate organization. And these are the research questions that were raised. Let's look at another example. That is the example of Biskin et al. And in their own case, they wanted to examine whether or not gender has an influence on disciplinary action. That is their aim. In the article, does the sex of the leader and subordinate influence a leader disciplinary action? That is the objective. That is the thing they have in infraction. Will a male leader impose the same disciplinary action on female subordinates? Another question is, given the same infraction, would a female leader impose the same disciplinary action on male and female subordinates? Another research question is, given the same infraction, would a female leader impose the same disciplinary action on subordinate as a male leader would on male subordinates? Then another question, research question from that same main question, do female and male leaders impose the same discipline on subordinate regardless of the type of infraction? From these three examples that we have shown, you see that we have a major question in our mind, but we have to break our question down into subsets so that they become researchable questions. Now, let us look at, we now look at the step one by one. I already told you the first step. We are now looking at another step now. We have looked at the first step, which is our question. Then after that, the next thing we do is a literature, our literature review. Our literature review. That is the next step. We need to look at the literature review. We look at what other people have done. We have our problem stated already. Then you need to look at the literature and review the literature. After the literature review, the next step is the methodology. In this particular step, which is step number 4 now, the researcher, we need to devise strategy that we use to conduct his research. We are talking about the research design. We need to have what we call research design. Last week, the person that took out the seminar explained the different types of research. The researcher will need to look at whether he has to set up experiment to collect data that will enable him to propose the hypothesis, or the researcher will decide whether he will need experimental or non-experimental method for conducting the research. Then the type of research design will vary depending on the field in which the research is being conducted. So the researcher, after he has already looked at the, he has already decided the research design, he will need to look at the population of study. You remember that one of our professors have already taught us about population and samples. And you need to decide the sampling techniques. You will need to decide the sampling techniques that you will use for his study. Now, in this slide, we look at the various, how do you decide your design? How do you set up your design? How do you determine the kind of a design that you will use for your research? Number one, you will ask yourself, where will your study be conducted and what type of study? And when you look at where your study will be conducted and the type of study, you'll be able to make a decision about the kind of design that you will use. Then you raise some other questions because at time I will not go through all of them. You raise some other questions as you see them in the slide. Research design varies by field and by the question being investigated. Many researchers combine qualitative and quantitative forms of analysis to better answer questions we cannot be studying in laboratory setting, particularly in the social sciences and in education. So these are the things you will consider before you now choose your design. Then you will also need to ask yourself, in collecting approach, will you need to collect data, then you develop the theory, or you Sorry for the break because of connection problem. I don't know whether we are hearing me now. So for deductive, then you have considered your population. Then the next thing is now to choose our sample, the sample of the study. This sample, we can decide our sample based on probability. On probability, that is, each member of a given population has an equal chance of being selected of an organization. For example, if you take a university system for an example, the population will consist of the academic staff, the administrators, the non-academic staff, and then the students that form or action research. The next thing after you have done, you have chosen the method you want to use, the next thing will be the instrument to be employed for the study. These instruments, you have to decide, are you going to extract data? Are you going to use questionnaire? Are you going to make use of a structured interview or semi-structured interview? These are questions you will need to provide answer to. The next slide. Now, after you have decided whether you are going to use a questionnaire, you will now collect your data based on whatever instrument that you have constructed or you are adopting. After you have done that, the next stage will be the next stage is the data analysis itself, and you will need to find out from your the research question that you have. It's a research question that will determine the type of statistics you use for your analysis, and the kind of data that you need or the kind of analysis result you need will determine the kind of software you are going to use. So data analysis can be done in two ways: qualitatively or quantitatively. All that the researcher will need to find out what qualitative method or quantitative method will be needed, or we will need a combination of them. Of recent, in Nigeria, most of the time, most of the empirical studies that have been done in Nigeria are majorly based on quantitative analysis. But of recent, one of our premier university, University of Ibadan, they have been doing a lot of training on how to use how to do qualitative data analysis. So you can, if you want to know more about qualitative analysis, I think University of Ibadan Institute of Education will be of help to any researcher that is interested in carrying out data analysis for empirical study using doing it in a kind of qualitative way. Now, we want to compare the quantitative methods of research with that of qualitative method. Now, you can see the comparison. When we are using quantitative methods, we have to use numbers. Whereas for qualitative methods, you make use of typical use of words. Under quantitative, you have deductive, the other one you have inductive. In quantitative method, it involves the researcher as ideally an objective, impartial observer. But in the other side, qualitative method require more participation and involvement on the part of the researcher. In the qualitative method, you focus on cause and effects. Where on the qualitative method, you focus on understanding of phenomena in their social, institutional, political, and economic context. Under the quantitative methods, it requires research question or hypothesis, but under the qualitative method, you do not require hypothesis. Under the quantitative method, you have the drawback that they may force people into category. It cannot go into more depth about subject and issue, but for the qualitative methods, you have the drawback that they focus on a few individuals and may therefore be difficult to generalize. So there are pros and cons on both of them. So you have to decide which of them that you want to use. After we have carried out the research, you have your results, and then you have your finding. Then the issue now is you have to give a report, because those people that will make use of your research findings, they are not there when you are carrying out your research. So you will need to know how to report your research findings. How do we go about that? That is our next subject. How do you report? Many of us, we know we have our formats in our various institutions. if you are writing a project, or thesis or dissertation, every university or institution, they have a format. And if you are writing a paper for journal publication, you'll see that the journal, they have notes to contributors. You have to look at their notes, and that one will inform you how to go about how to report your research findings. But whichever one, whether you are writing a thesis or you are writing a project or you are writing for a journal, there is a question that the reviewer or your supervisor will be looking for, whether before they will accept your paper, after you have said, I did this, this is my research problem, this is my purpose of research, this is my research question, this is my literature review, this and that. After you have said all that, there is something that your supervisor or the other examiner will be looking for to be able to judge your work, whether it's acceptable or not, or before your paper will be acceptable by the editorial board, the editor. There is a question, so what? They're asking a question. What have you contributed to knowledge, existing knowledge? From from your research findings, what have you contributed to knowledge? Now, let us take, for example, one of the, when we are talking about how to write, how to raise our research question, I gave you 3 examples, and specifically, let's look at the first one. That research was done. 2 research questions were raised to look at what is the impact of introduction of technology in conduct of examination. What is the effect? What is the impact of introduction of technology on the impact of conduct of examination? Whether it has reduced, whether it has reduced examination malpractice or not. Now, from that study, look at the findings by those who carry out that research. Before the introduction of technology, they look at the infraction that were committed by many candidates. Number 1, in many of the public examinations across Africa, these are the common infraction that can be committed by the candidate. Number 1, there can be widespread cheating, that you find out that the question leak, and before the examination, you discover that many people have seen the question even before the question is being officially released to the student. So there can be what we call widespread cheating. Another infraction can be students carrying phone to the exam hall. Maybe they are to write an examination that is objective. It may be that they already stored the answer in the phone. So it will be wrong for the candidate to go into the examination hall with their cell phone. Other time, it may be collusion between the candidate and the examiner, that maybe the examiner themselves, they are dictating answer to the candidate in the examination hall. Other time, it may be that the student, they come late for the exam. Other time, may be that they are copying from prepared answer sheet, or other people come to write the exam for them. Now, so we look at all these infractions. You will see that looking at that infraction, you will see that widespread cheating was the one that carried the highest percentage. That is, the question leaked even before the examination day, and everywhere the question is, maybe the children have seen the question and it's being sold in the market, sold in the internet, and all that. So you see, before the examination, the research shows that the widespread cheating 54.34% accounted for the wide widespread cheating in the exam. And then after the introduction of the examination, introduction of technology in the conduct of examination, if you look at the table, you will see that it is still the same widespread cheating that had the highest percentage among the other infractions. So what is our conclusion? After the study, the researcher discovered three things. Number one, they saw that introduction of technology in examination has impacts in that it has reduced examination malpractice. You find that it has really reduced the rate of examination malpractice in public examination. So that is a plus for technology, that if we employ technology, it will reduce infraction in examination. But another and that is if your institution or your establishment only is focusing on technology. I want to find examination malpractice with technology. This research report shows that only technology cannot solve the problem. There are many other hidden factors. And from this research, we find out that the major problem that is causing infraction is human being. And you discover that it is this widespread cheating that is causing problem. So therefore, the further research should be, what can we do to eliminate widespread cheating? That can be another research for other people to investigate. We have seen that technology has helped much. It has helped to reduce examination malpractice. But another finding is that it has not eradicated completely examination malpractice. Number three, we discovered that human beings, there are human factors that may be responsible to examination malpractice. So this calls for further investigation. How can we eliminate that factor? The factor of people cheating exam and influencing candidate cheating in examination. So you can see one problem leads to another, and that is what this research has contributed to knowledge. So you can see that that particular research is not a waste of effort. It has brought three findings that that will help the education. The education needs to do better. Now, having said that, we summarize all this process with this circle. We call it empirical research circle. Now, the first thing is observation. The approach you want to use for your investigation, will it be inductive or deductive? Then after that, you have raised some research question hypothesis. You are testing. You will do all the data you have collected, and you are doing analysis. All you are trying to do is testing. You are testing. You want to find out whether your hypothesis, either you reject or you will not reject your hypothesis. So that is the stage of our testing. Then the next one is the evaluation, and that is the circle in empirical research. The next stage is now to write our report writing. Just as I've said, I will not take our time on the writing report. If you are writing for a journal, you need the notes for contributors. Well, you need to study it before you start writing. You need to look at the methodology. Do they expect you to describe the process of achieving the research objective and answering the research question as well as the method you use? We need to look at the note of conclusion. Do they expect you to describe the type of research you have done? Is it going to be exploratory or descriptive research? You need to state the unit of analysis. You need to look at the theoretical focus. Will it be inductive, or the research approach, will it be a case study? The types of data you need to employ, is it going to be quantitative or qualitative? Then you will need to talk about the findings. The findings should encompass the main conclusion as developed from your analysis of data. You don't need to describe either the research instrument fully or the data they generate in great detail. You need to find out from the notes of contributor whether they need that or they don't need it. So most editors and peer reviewers, in selecting articles for publication, there's a question they always ask. After you said you collected this data, you got these results. The question is, so what? They are asking that question. So what? What have you contributed to the existing knowledge? So what? So what? That is the question that is in the mind of the reviewer. What has this paper or this research, what has you contributed to knowledge? I believe with this presentation, we have been able to define empirical research, and we have also looked at the various stages in the process of conducting an empirical research. And we have also discussed the process of, in conclusion or in recommendation, there are things that we need to do. Participants, we need to look at the forthcoming flyer, and we should generate research questions. Having looked at the theory, we need to look at call for paper, and with that we can generate research question. Then because of that, we are going to have an interaction now. We look at the forthcoming conference, for example. Some of us, we don't know how to write paper. Just look at the flyer. You have the flyer there. I want you to look at the sub-team. Choose any of the sub-team there you like. We have about 18 of them there. Look at not all of them that you can write empirical research on, but look at any of them that you believe you can do empirical research. I want you to look at them and select one. What you will quickly do before we call it a day is that you will generate a research question. Generate a research question. Can we quickly do that? That's why we have biro and paper with us there. You have a sub-team. Formulate a topic or a title of your research from any of the sub-team. Can you quickly generate 2 or 3 research questions? The anchor will call anybody later to tell us what he has done. So I hope all of us were working. From the sub-team, choose a topic or a title for your paper, then quickly generate 2 or 3 research questions. The next question is, you will write down, state which type of research design and sampling technique you will employ. Which type of research design and sampling technique you will employ in carry out your study. Are we done that? Then the last exercise for tonight, based on your stated research questions, suggest statistics you will use to analyze your data. Suggest statistics you will use to analyze your data. When you are answering, giving a report of this exercise, you will tell us your research question, you tell us your topic, you tell us your research question, and then you tell us the type of research design you will employ and the sampling technique. Then the house will decide whether you are right or wrong. Then you will also tell us the type of statistics you are going to use to analyze. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening. Over to you, the anchor. We are waiting for the anchor. Over to you, anchor.
All right, thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Thank you, the presenter, for the presentation. I'm so sorry, I was trying to do, but nobody could. All right, apologies once again. So I was asking if anyone has, okay, I think I can see some hands raised already. Um, so when I call you, I will have to unmute you from here so that you can ask your question. So let me start with Aminat Egberongbe. Please ask your question, ma. Please unmute yourself from your end. Okay, probably while we wait for her to get connected, let me read some of the questions I have on the chat here. The trend to empirical research is changing to mixed research. What is your view of this new trend in research? From Dr. Adeshino Abiodun. The trend to empirical research is changing to mixed research. What is your view of this new trend in research?
Yes, I think it was said during the discourse of the discussion that we should not limit ourselves to only quantitative research, but both of them can be mixed using the qualitative and quantitative approach. And that will give us, will make our research more robust and we're able to get the best. So since there are different theory and different approaches, making use of all the approaches, if they are applicable, if we mix them, it will be better. That is my opinion. I think the current trend is better than the former trend.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, Dr. Mrs. Aminat, please, can you ask your question already? You have to unmute yourself from your hand, ma. All right, while I wait for her, let me ask let me read out the other questions here. Deduction method of investigation proceeds from the general observation to specific conclusion, whereas the reverse is for the induction. Does empirical research proceed on induction or by deduction? I'll take the question again. Deduction method of investigation proceed from the general conservation to specific conclusion, whereas the reverse is the case for induction. Does empirical research proceed from induction or by deduction? That's from, okay, also from Dr. Adeshino Abiodun.
Just as we said during the course of discussion, you will find out that when you are doing empirical research, you are not biased, you are not taking stand, you are not taking side. You report objectively your findings. So you report based on it's a kind of scientific investigation. It's just like the example we gave during the course of study, the impact of technology on assessment, on examination, or to eradicate examination insecurity. You discover that the researcher was not taking any side. He was not saying, or he didn't conclude that technology will eradicate examination malpractice. So it is based on the findings. Now you have a deduction. You are able to see that, okay, even technology helped to reduce examination malpractice, but you don't eradicate everything fully. So your decision, you now make inference, you now make deduction from your findings. It's not that you already zero your mind that must be like this. So that is my stand on that.
All right, thank you, sir. The last question here. Can a research question be stated in a yes or no format? Is there a relationship between variable? Okay, I didn't get that. Let me just take the first part. Can research question be stated in a yes or no format? That's from Ijeoma Okpara. Forgive me, I don't know the title, so I'll just go with the name I can read. Thank you.
Okay, I think that question is related to the former one. When you are doing empirical study, you do not take side of and are not citing them. When you have yes or no type of questionnaire, it's not the test because you already fixed your participant, your subject, you already fixed them. You didn't allow them to have a wide spread of, I think it is something. So in an empirical study, you should give you should be objective. At least yes and no type of scale will not be the best. So that's why we normally employ meter scale, 84 point. I believe they are right. Hello, are you hearing me? I said, hello, I believe in questionnaire you are hearing me. I said that it's not the best to use yes and no approach because it's like one will be taking sides. So rather, it's better to use Likert scale type when we are doing empirical study, maybe 4-point Likert scale or 5-point Likert scale, as the researcher may decide. Thank you.
All right, sir. Thank you so much. I can't seem to see any other question, except there are contributions from any of the people currently participating. So please, if you have something to say on the subject, you can also use the raise of the hand feature or just signify so we can know. Anyone with question, and I hope the answers are already turning in. Yeah, I've seen a lot of people requesting for the video due to the very sorry for the internet facility. It's way beyond us. Most of the time you can't really, there are backup, but even the backups seem not to be dependable. The cloud isn't so favorable. We are so sorry for that. And we trust that going forward, our nation will be a better one to provide us with stable internet. We are so sorry for that. So as I was saying, if there are people with contributions on the subject, please you can use the raise of the hand feature. Okay, I can see the hand raised. I'm so sorry, I don't know the title, so I'll just call the name. Curfew, and forgive me if I didn't call it well. Curfew 8C.
Yeah,
Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. I want to make a contribution on writing research questions. As Professor Ree already said, there is a new trend where when you are writing research questions, you answer the question in terms of research. For example, there was one research question which of computer-based testing improved examination security. The answer to that question will be to a large extent, to a small extent. So it cannot be an empirical research question. So the trend is that we have stopped using to what extent to start research questions. In that case, it should rather have been, how has the introduction of CBT improved examination security? And a similar question was asked by Ijoma. Is there a relationship between a variable and a variable where the answer is yes or no? The trend is that we don't ask research questions like that. You cannot have a yes or no answer. So it should be, what is the relationship between this variable and that variable? So you don't make it, is there a relationship? If you say, is there a relationship? The answer is yes, there is, no, there is. So it is not a researchable question. So that is the contribution I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. We appreciate that. Let me just give room to any other person who might have something to add to that. Is there any other person? Please, you can use the raise of the hand feature. All right, so it seems to be that there is no other one willing to make a contribution. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight. As you've seen, the material the facilitator used is the flyer for the oncoming conference, and I'm sure we've seen it displayed a number of times. So keep the dates and be prepared. And also, this is a good news to everyone that the deadline for abstract has been extended till the 30th of September. So if you are yet to send in your abstracts, the room is still open till the 30th of this month to turn in the abstracts to your paper. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us again tonight. We anticipate to see you again, same time next week. Thank you so much. My name is Peace. Before we go, please can we have Bukola Hatobatele? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I know I'm messing up the name. Bukola Hatobatele. Please pray, do the closing prayer for us. Please, you have to unmute yourself and pray for us, please.
I've done that. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Ma. She came left open.
We thank you for everything you have done. Father, we pray that as we are hearing all these things, help us to be a good ambassador in all these things that we are learning in Jesus' name. And as we are going, Lord, and we are preparing for the conference ahead, please prepare every one of us and help us, oh God, to do what you want us to do in Jesus' name. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you
Amen.
so much, Mrs. Bukola. We are grateful. To everyone, I wish you a wonderful week ahead. Have a fulfilling weekday.
Amen. Thank you, sir.